Once again, the Devils were not so mighty against the Ducks, and for the second time this season, they lost to them. Yet they dominated in the shots category, and they still lost 4-3. What went wrong? And also, what do the players think of Lindy Ruff? We have a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Straight from Anaheim. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Scores! Oh, Stevens stepped up, nailed him. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here on Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play-by-play announcer, Devils Wire for Pucks and Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member Trey Matthews, coming to you from the press box here at the Honda Center, where the New Jersey Devils lost to the not-so-mighty Ducks by a score of 4-3. Why do I call them the not-so-mighty Ducks? Well, entering this matchup, Anaheim had a record of 21, 33, and 3, yet for the second time this season, the Devils lost to them. And to make matters worse, the Devils are still in the hunt for a playoff position, and they are looking at the wild card or the Metropolitan Division. But losing games like this does not make it easier for them. And their season slipping slowly away because, keep in mind, they still got to play the Toronto Maple Leafs. They still got to play the Rangers. There's so many games to look forward to for the Devils that are not going to be easy matchups. So you really need to win these types of games. And their next game is going to be at Crypto.com Arena against the LA Kings, another team that they lost to not too long ago. I don't know what it is with the Devils, but they're losing points on the table, and it's not good for them. In today's episode, I will share some of my main takeaways from the game. I also obtained some sound bites in the locker room. Jack Hughes will speak on his fumble of a penalty shot that he had an opportunity to tie the game on, and like we all have seen, it just did not go all that well. It's on ESPN, it's everywhere, and he spoke on it, albeit briefly. And I also asked some of the players their opinions on Lindy Ruff and his leadership the last few games, because that's been a main talking point, which is people want to see Lindy Ruff get the can, and I did my best to get the players' thoughts and opinions, and I will share them throughout the course of the episode. And like I do with every post-game recap, I will compare the stats and give the Devils a letter grade. Let's begin with the trade that the Devils made going into this game, and I'll make a full-fledged episode about it in the near future. But for what it's worth, the Devils acquired Curtis McDermott from the Avalanche in exchange for a 2024 seventh-round pick and Zachar Bardakov. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. But people are wondering, what is he going to bring to the roster? Because in 29 game appearances for the Avalanche, he has a plus-minus of +3. He has appeared in 29 games, and he has spent 23 minutes in the penalty box. But not only that, he has 318 career minutes spent in the penalty box in 249 NHL games played. All I can tell you, and like I said, I'll talk more about it in a future episode, but physicality. But let's get on to the more important matter, which is the Devils' shocking loss to the Ducks yet again. There are three guarantees in life: death, taxes, and the Devils giving up the first goal of the game. This time, Frank Vetrano answered the bell, and I don't know what the record is for the amount of times a team has let up the first goal of the game, but I'm sure the Devils are on pace to break that record. And to make matters worse, the Devils were getting their shots going early, but it's the same story for a lot of the games, which is there's no body movement. However, the puck moves, but not the players, if that makes sense. I was actually talking to Sam Kassan about this, and we were just trying to determine, like, what's been the Devils' struggles. Well, there's a case in point right there. They're not really getting to the crease like they should be. And when they do, it's too little too late. And the Devils have shot themselves in the foot with situations like that. Just when you thought the Devils couldn't get off to a worse start, well, Radko Gudas had a big hit on Jack Hughes coming down the middle. And luckily, someone stuck up for Jack. It was Curtis Lazar. Unfortunately, Lazar got the crap beaten out of him and fell down to the ground. But that's been one of the complaints this season, which is the Devils are too soft. And Curtis Lazar, we know he loves those meat and potatoes because that's his style of play. But going back to what I said early on, maybe Curtis McDermott can help in that sort of way. But anyway, Devils are trailing 1-0. Timo Meier collects the loose change in front after a couple of point-blank shots from both Jack Hughes and Tyler Toffoli, and he found the back of the net and tied up the game. And it's worth mentioning that Timo Meier has 5 points, 2 goals, 3 assists in his last 4 games. And we've been talking about it the last few episodes. I've been seeing it on social media, but it seems like Timo Meier is starting to come back in fruition and he's heading in the right direction. I actually asked him about it post-game. Here's what he had to share.
What's been cooking for you offensively? It seems like you've been racking up a decent amount of points the last few games.
I mean, I don't know if I play the right way. That's going to come. Most important is that we want to win games, and that's what you go out there for, and got to compete, try to help your team win games.
Timo brings a lot to this team, and I'm glad that the points are starting to reflect his style of play, and I think Lindy Ruff is using him in a more correct manner. Like I said, he collected the loose change in front via Tyler Toffoli and Jack Hughes, and I've been saying it on this show, which is if you put him alongside Nico Hischier, if you put him alongside Jack Hughes, I think you can expect better performances from Timo Meier, and he's starting to showcase it by taking advantage of the opportunity by being paired alongside Nico Hischier or playing alongside Jack Hughes. But anyway, that's really the only positive I could take away from this game, which is Timo Meier, once again, just racking up the points. But Adam Henrique, the former Devil, who's been in a lot of trade talk discussions, and hopefully he does not go to the New York Rangers, but after Timo Meier scored, he tucked it in backdoor on Nico Daws, who had a bad performance. There's no other way I could put it, and we'll talk about it a little later. But at the end of period 1, the Devils had 17 shots on Lucas Dostal, whereas the Ducks had 7 on Nico Daws, yet they had 2 goals. One of the main problems is that the Devils, they need to clean up the puck. They need to play better defense, and their goaltenders need to make those crucial saves. And I actually talked to Chico Resch and Ken Danico about it, and I'll go into more detail about that conversation in the second segment. But second period, same story. Devils had more shots, but the Ducks continued to capitalize. Max Jones had a redirect out front, and at the time, the Ducks had 3 goals on 12 shots, and that's a 25% success rate. And luckily, the Devils were rewarded with another power play, thanks to a holding call, and a nice quick shot from Jack Hughes on the power play. Now, I am going to talk bad about Jack Hughes in the second segment, but just to get the good out the way, he now has 6 points, 2 goals, 4 assists in his last 3 games. But it was short-lived once again because Frank Vetrano, down the lane, swiped away any momentum the Devils had in that period. And it was 2 straight periods where the Devils give up 2 goals on 7 shots. Unacceptable. Third period, finally, Nico Daws is out the game because that was a pitiful performance, and Akira Schmid comes in relief. Tyler Toffoli, he scored on the power play to cut the lead to 1, and it seemed like the Devils, okay, still a long shot, but they could tie this game at least. There was a few seconds remaining in the game, and Frank Vetrano saw that the Devils had good pressure on the Ducks. He decided to move the net on purpose, and that quantified for a penalty shot from the Devils. And how did that go? Well, like I said, I think we've all seen it on the many major social media platforms. I love it when the Devils make ESPN, but for good reasons, obviously. And we're going to talk about that in the second segment because Jack Hughes' penalty shot is one of the many examples as to what went wrong for the Devils. And I know a lot of people are putting the blame on him, but there's more to this loss than just one particular play. What do I mean by that? Well, you'll just have to wait and see. And I spoke with Jack Hughes post-game. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about Camino Consulting. You've heard of our online families and couples course and taking advantage of the Locked On 25% discount running to the end of the month. But what about live seminars? In both sport and business, a challenge of differentiating candidates and recruits in an endless battle. Everyone can demonstrate their measurables and qualifications, but we all know it is the intangibles that matter when those things are similar. Contact Camino Consulting for their team and management seminars to get a peek behind the curtain and watch your next recruiting class or hiring group become one of the most effective you've ever seen. because you identified the right candidates and you've learned how to communicate and motivate them in accord with their own preferences. But you aren't in business management or working with a team. We pay referrals. Make some money making your workplace and favorite teams better. Every group works together better at the end of the year compared to week one. So contact Camino Consulting at CaminoConsulting.ca and get on the fast track to understanding. Okay, what went wrong specifically for the Devils? Well, first and foremost, the goaltending, because I talked about this in segment one. Nico Daws did not have a good game in net. He saw 12 shots and only made 8 saves. He picked the absolute wrong time to have his worst performance. And the one thing I've said about Nico Daws is that I love him and all, but I feared that the Devils were overworking him. And look what happened. Now the Devils are forced to put all their trust in this young goalie, and that can't be good for how his development is going, or his confidence, to say the least. But Nico Daws, as acknowledged by Lindy Ruff postgame, did not have a good performance, and it seems like his footwork is just a little bit slow, and he needs to work on that a little bit more. But again, he's thrusted into a role that he was not prepared to take. And now the Devils are just trying to hold on to any hope that they have of making the playoffs. And it's all on Nico Daws' shoulders. And that's not fair to him. But at the end of the day, Nico Daws did not have a good performance. And now it raises a question, which is you're going up against the LA Kings. That's not an easier matchup. As we all know, the Kings are right now in hunt for a wild card position if they're not there already. And do you put Akira Schmidt in, or do you put Nico Daws back in? Because it seems like neither goalie is a guaranteed win for the Devils. It seems like I don't know who to put my trust in, if that makes sense. And Vitek Vanecek is still out with his injury, which confirms my suspicion that his injury must be more serious than we thought. And now this raises a big question. And for all the people who doubted Vitek Vanecek over the summer, said that the Devils should make a move for a goalie, you've been proven right, because here we are. Well, what could have happened if Tom Fitzgerald just made these small tweaks to the Devils early on? What would have happened if he made those tweaks over the summer? Because yes, he got Tyler Toffoli. That was a big add. But at the same time, the Devils goaltending, it was still a question mark heading into the season. I had full faith in Vitek Vanecek. I had full faith in Akira Schmid, but their undesired success from round 2 of the playoffs has carried over into this season, and it's just been following them ever since. And the same can be said for Nico Daws right now, because aside from the San Jose Sharks game, Nico Daws just hasn't really looked his sharpest. And I don't want to put all the blame on the goaltending, but you do have to raise that question. Now let's look on the defense, because it's been also equally atrocious in this matchup. Because Luke Hughes, I'll give him credit, he had a multi-point outing, but his defense is still not up to par, and he looks absolutely gassed out there. He might need a breather, and I mean that in the most respectful way possible. And then remember that Frank Vetrano goal that I talked about, in which he got his second of the game, and that kind of took the momentum out of the Devils' sails? Well, he was the one who initially started that play for the Ducks, and if you look at the replay, he is just chugging down one lane, and John Marino and Kevin Ball don't see him. So essentially, Frank Vetrano has just this open sheet of ice that he can work with, and no one is like picking him up. And as a result, both Ball and Marino had their backs turned, and Vetrano scores it. Defense really needs to pick it up. I don't know what else to say. And I asked Chico Resch, I asked Ken Danico about their thoughts on it, because I was like, when do you blame the goaltending and when do you blame the defense? Obviously, both of them are good former players in their own respective way. Chico being a former goalie, Dano being a former defenseman. And Dano says, like, the goalie is the last line of defense. And yes, the defense hasn't been all that strong, but the goalie has to make those types of saves. And then for Chico, he's appeared on my show before and talked about the matter. He just said that the defense needs to be a little bit more physical. And I believe both of them are right in their own sense, because the defensemen that the Devils are rolling with have been very inconsistent. And I do not like the pairing of Luke Hughes and Brandon Smith. I really don't. Kevin Ball and John Marino, they had that defensive meltdown that I talked about. Jonas Siegenthaler, I just expected a little bit better from Siegs. And then for Shimon Nemets and Luke Hughes, just those two young guys, period. Sometimes they look absolute gassed out there, and the Devils are putting a lot of pressure on them, but they don't really have much to work with at this point. And Lucas Dostal, he saw 55 shots and made 52 saves. Incredible. he was a wall out there. Lucas Dowall. Okay, let's talk about probably the biggest storyline in the game, and that was Jack Hughes' missed penalty shot. Okay, before I give my thoughts on it, Jack Hughes did speak to the media, and like always, he kept it short and simple. But here's what he had to say about his blunder, the team in general. Take a listen.
From that game, obviously a lot of opportunities, but at the end, don't come away with anything.
Yeah, tough game. We needed that one, so got to be ready to go in LA.
Is that kind of the message, like keep plowing ahead, keep going, stay the course?
Yeah, that's all we got to do.
And that penalty shot, the puck just kind of fall off the stick.
Just not a good play by me, so thanks, guys.
Look, that was an absolute fumble by Jack Hughes, and I don't expect that from him. He literally had a good look on the power play earlier, and he sniped it right past Dostal, and he couldn't do it this time around on the penalty shot. Like I said, there was only a few seconds remaining, and the Devils were in need of a miracle, and I thought they got it because here's Jack Hughes. Here's his bread and butter. Collect the puck, run full steam ahead, and just try to use your razzle-dazzle because that's what we see all year long from Jack, whether it's 5-on-5 or on the power play, and he whiffed at it. He didn't even get a shot on. He fumbled it like a football player out there. It was just a big heartbreaker for the Devils, and then as soon as the penalty shot was up, that was pretty much the only hope the Devils had to tie this game and send it into OT. But I know a lot of people are mad at Jack Hughes for missing that shot or saying like, why? Because he's done this before. Well, this is the problem that I've been having with the Devils, which is when you don't get off to a good start, for example, giving up the first goal of the game, you're playing catch up and you don't know how much time you have left, especially when you're trying to amount this comeback because they were down 4-2 heading into the final period of regulation and time is winding down. The clock is not your friend. And I know this Ducks team is not good, but do you really want to press your luck against them or any team in general? Because the cards are in their hands and you have to look for any possible opportunity you can get to try to tie the game or win it. So there's just a lot of other factors leading up into that moment. And unfortunately, it came down to just one final play that is either going to go well or it's going to go bad. And unfortunately, it went down avenue number 2, which is it did not go well. But the loss shouldn't be on Jack Hughes' shoulders entirely because the Devils put themselves into that situation in the first place. You shouldn't be in that situation, especially against this Ducks team that has only won now 22 games. Why put yourself into that situation and now you're forced to make the big plays in order to salvage what's left? I get it, it's frustrating, but at the end of the day, that's just how it is for the Devils. Now, Lindy Ruff, as always, on social media, the biggest talking point is that Lindy Ruff should be fired. He's lost the locker room, yada, yada, yada. Now, I did my absolute best. I asked Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, and Timo Meier their thoughts on Lindy Ruff, his leadership the last few games. I worded it the best way I could, but here's what they had to share post-game.
How has Lindy been helping you guys through this turbulent stretch?
He's been helping us. He's fair to us. He needs what's need to be said in the locker room. He does that, and he was right. He came in here, and it's all that matters at the end was how bad do we want to win. And I think in the third period, he saw us coming out there and that we want to win. I think he did set the right message in the locker room.
Well, we got our system. We got to play, and we got to play for the guy next to each other. Just battle as hard as you can. It's such a tight race, and we got to believe we can still do it. Obviously today it's not the result we want, but you can't let your head down. But you got to stick together. Go to work again tomorrow.
I mean, we're in a playoff push, so everyone's pulling the rope the same way, and we're just trying to win hockey games.
I feel like Nico and Timo answered it more directly, and whereas Jack Hughes, he was trying to avoid a little bit more. He just tried to circle it back to like, we're all just trying to get to the same place and take it how you want to take it. I did my best, and no, I can't just ask the player directly like, hey, do you think Lindy Ruff should be fired? Because what do you think the answer is going to be? It's going to be like, no, I do, or no comment, or what kind of question is that? Or worst of all, I could lose my credential. I did my best, guys. That's all I could say. I did my absolute very best to get the answer. But Lindy Ruff, like I said, if the Devils lose their next matchup against the LA Kings, he might be on the hot seat, and that seat might get warmer, and warmer. But it's very late in the season. I don't know if a coaching change is really going to salvage what's left. And the Devils, their playoff chances are not dead, but they're not doing themselves any favors losing to a team like Anaheim, with all due respect. Now, like I do with every post-game recap, I will compare the stats and give the Devils a letter grade momentarily. But before we continue, let me tell you about Sleeper. Regardless of where the Devils are at in the current standings, I want to remind you that you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. Because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. You don't just have to participate in hockey. You can participate in fantasy football, basketball, baseball, college football, all on the Sleeper app. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Jack Hughes, Nico, Hischier, Jesper Bratt, Nico Dawes will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in any given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Devils fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. Start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Okay, I really don't want to do this, but we got to compare the stats. Give the Devils a letter grade. Defense, goaltending, atrocious. Offense, 3 goals is enough to win the game, but some changes might need to be made for the Devils. But let's see. Shots on goal differential, 55-23 in favor of the Devils. How do the Ducks get 23 shots and score 4 goals? In regulation, nonetheless. Oh, that's ugly. And Adam Henrique, I believe he has, 4 goals on the Devils this year? Worth mentioning that ever since he got traded to January of last year, he had only scored 3 goals on the Devils total. He's already surpassed his, career average against the Devils ever since being dealt away. Face-off percentage, 53.5% to the Devils, 46.5% to the Ducks. Power play, Devils were 2 for 4. There's a positive right there. Devils, good on their power play, half of their attempts. Ducks were 0 for 2. Hits 28-10 in favor of the Ducks, playing way more physical out there. Like I said earlier in the episode, Lazar got into it with Gudas, but Gudas won that battle. And then Johnston, he was ruffling the feathers of Luke Hughes late in the game. Yeah, the Ducks were a very physical team against the Devils. Block shots 21-10 in favor of the Ducks. Once again, the Devils, in my opinion, I've talked about this matter with other Devils content creators, which is if you take too many perimeter shots, then the defense can read on it very easily because you're right in front of them, which leaves you susceptible to block shots. And I bet there's a reason why the Ducks had less than 30 shots on both Schmid and also Dawes, yet they found the back of the net 4 times. Giveaways, Devils led the department 8-6. Takeaways, 6-4 in favor of the Ducks. If I had to give the Devils a letter grade, I do want to give them an F, but since they showed somewhat effort and had their chances, I'm going to give them a solid D because one, you should not be losing to a team like this. It was not a good effort, but at least it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And they did technically dominate the game. They were good in their power play. They were good in the penalty kill. They were good in shooting, but unfortunately, too many defensive lapses, ill-advised turnovers, and the goaltending was not good. And this is against the Anaheim Ducks, who only had 21 wins going into this matchup, with all due respect. So take it how you want to take it. And the players have shared their thoughts on Lindy Ruff. That's all I could tell you. Leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. What letter grade would you give the Devils? And what were your overall thoughts on the matchup? And what are some of your main takeaways going forward? I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. If you're listening on podcast streaming service, hit me up on my personal X Page app at TreyMatt4 or the show's X Page app at Locked On Devils. As for his episode, that's all the time I have for you. So continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day, New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys in the next episode when I head down to Staples Center, not Crypto.com Arena, to cover the LA Kings and the Devils. And we'll see if they'll have a better outcome. The house that Kobe Bryant built. I'll see you guys then. Trey Matthews signing out from the Honda Center.